move that over, and we can see that although I've keyframed it at 100, it sort of goes off screen. This is where it is. It sort of goes off screen at frame 80. I'd like to extend that a bit. So what I'll do is just grab this one here and drag it over in time a bit. And this way we can sort of see that it goes off screen at frame 93. And I'm pretty happy with that. So this will be our transition. The materials I'll assign to each of these will be just surface shaders. A black one for the box. And I'll call this cube here the reveal, I can't spell, matte. And the character, where's the outliner? Select the skeleton, create another surface shader, assign that, oops, we lost the selection. Close graph editor, we won't be needing that anymore. Find the outliner. Where is the outliner? The outline actually went underneath my taskbar, so if that ever happens to you, go into the taskbar properties and check auto hide the taskbar, so when it's not in use it'll hide itself and you'll be able to select whatever window that's gone rogue. You can bring it back to justice. So I'll set that back to the way it was, and now I have my outliner. So skeleton, let me add the second surface shader to yourself, and this surface shader will be a red, so I can just select it by using the red channel. Looks like something funny is going on here. Let me just reassign that. All I can see is white in my view currently. Let's see in the perspective view. I think it's because I had materials turned on. Textures, sorry. I think that's textures, yeah. So this will, so we can sort of see, if we go back to our camera view, the a bit more clearly. That's what we'll be seeing. Now that's good. To add a bit more interesting look to the actual skeleton, I'm going to add an ambient occlusion layer. So I'll copy this layer and call this the AO. And on this layer will be the ambient occlusion of the character, just the character. So I'll actually hide the box, hide you, and on the master layer we can see we currently have the box. So I'll hide that there and then go back to the matte. If you hide something on the master layer, it hides it on all the layers. So just on the matte, go to the outline and reveal the box. So now we don't have a box, we do have a box, we don't have a box. And in the hypershade for this layer, I will have, just to make it easier on my eyes, a green matte for this character. Actually it won't matter because it's adding ambient occlusion. So let's go to mental ray, get the ambient occlusion. This one here, maybe 32 or 64 are still pretty low numbers, but I'll deal with it. Samples, that's pretty good, and just plug that into the out color, and then assign that type shade to the skeleton. Assign that there and call this AO. And let's just do a quick preview to see if that's working out for us. Yep, that looks good. Now, to create a really cool transition, as we saw, the box sort of reveals the character. It's sort of like a scanline renderer, how it shows. It slowly reveals, starting at the top, going to the bottom, the character. It's sort of boring just having this plain line here. What would be really cool is if we had it sort of like a bright light that was sort of, instead of just a flat plane, it was sort of like a glowing thing. It was like a light that was revealing the skeleton. As we progress, as we see more and more of it, the light shows more and more. And where we can do that is sort of use ambient occlusion, but ambient occlusion is black on white. Well, what we can simply do is reverse that, so that the parts that are occluded are light, and will sort of look like a laser light revealing the skeleton. So to do that, we're going to actually need to, well, we don't need to, but what would look better is if we had a larger box, because a box that is very conservative, such as this one, the ambient occlusion will sort of clip here. We want a much larger box to get a lot more of the smooth ambient occlusion. So I'm actually going to copy the matte layer, and this will be matte 1, and this will be the AO matte. Everything in this layer, sorry, not everything, the character in this layer will be getting removed, but we still need him in here to cause the ambient occlusion with the box. So it doesn't really matter what material he has, because he'll be getting matted out, but the box itself will need to have ambient occlusion applied to it, and we also need a different box. So what we could do is go edit, duplicate special, Control Shift D, and set the duplicate input connections, which is the transform values, and I'll apply that, close, and if we go to the outliner, we have a group that is created, and this reveal matte here has the keys on it, and I'll call this ambient occlusion matte, and probably should either take this out of its group or delete or rename the group, but I'll just take it out. And this one here, again, as I said, let's go to the top view, panels, orthographic top. This one needs to be much larger. It needs to be scaled on the X and the Z, something like that. So let's go back to the camera view. This is it here, and we're currently on the matte layer. I don't want this on the matte layer, I want this on the ambient occlusion matte layer. Let's go to the outliner and just reveal that on here, and as we can see, see how this is higher than the matte? This means that we're actually going to be we may be revealing this at a different time. So let's just go to the very first frame where we can see the skull, which is in this frame here. Okay, lucky. We can see them exactly at the same spot. Actually, we can see this one slightly beforehand. The difference is minuscule, so we probably won't notice, but just keep it in mind. If you make it too big, the ambient occlusion matte, then you will have different, it will appear at different times. So let's just do, or assign the ambient occlusion to this one as well. Hypershade, ambient occlusion, and the character on this layer, it can be whatever, because he'll get matted out. Let's do a quick render of this, just to see what's going on. So this black here is what we're wanting. That is the what we will invert and turn to light, and it sort of actually looks cool that it's that it has low samples. It's sort of grainy and looks cool. I actually prefer it this way, and it also saves on render time. So that's looking good. And with these 4 layers, let's just go through each one and do a render just to make sure that each one is looking good. So that ambient occlusion looks good. Let's try the matte. The matte looks good for this frame because this is here. And the master layer looks good also. Okay, now we have all 4 layers set up correctly. If we just go into the render settings, the file name prefix, if you don't have it set, it'll add it to the scene name. I'm going to have the, because I've named these, I'll have the layer name. So it'll call this master layer, call this one matte, call this one ambient occlusion, so on and so forth. You want a name, number, extension, a bit of frame padding, 3, sorry, because we have hundreds, and start at 0, end at 118. And we want the PF track camera, we want it 1080, and that's all looking good. So what you can do now is just hit batch render, just under rendering, render batch render, Make sure you got all your CPUs and render. Now let's head over to AETUTS, where we can start to composite all our CG passes together to create the final effect.